All right, wait a minute. Let me see if Tony, can you do something here for the? Give me the phone. Give me the phone. Wait a minute. You're listening to Hollywood Babble-On, and you I don't know what the hell UE radio is, but listen to it or you're gonna get whacked. All right, Tony, give me the phone. Oh my God.
Thank you.
Out of control.
Joe, are you there?
I'm here.
Joe, appreciate you coming on the show. Very excited to have you, and we've got people text chatting live as you and I speak, so sometimes I interject and ask questions, and you get perplexed because somebody hits me with a curveball.
Great.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? Well, congratulations on getting the award up there at Lake Arrowhead, and it's not enough that they're giving you an award for excellence in film and television. It's also for Beyond.
Well, I'm looking forward to the Beyond, I tell you.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is, but I know it's good.
Yeah, well, whatever.
It's
all good.
I'm looking to get any kind of award whatsoever, and you are pulling it in over there, and you're one of my very favorite actors. I admire your career tremendously because you do so many varied things. You're working in television and voiceover, in film, comedy, drama, and it just seems like you work and you work and you work, and you're kind of an unsung hero that I really admire.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. I mean, I just thought of myself pretty much as a character actor all my life, and I love what I do, and I've been very fortunate to kind of been able to jump around and do things from theater to film to television and played a variety of roles. And so it's really, I have no complaints. Things really have panned out as I'd hoped, to tell you the truth.
Did you always want to be an actor?
Well, I mean, I think since high school age, certainly. I mean, I got introduced to the theater while I was in high school. It was just something about the whole experience, auditioning for my first play on a dare and not getting cast, and yet just really feeling this was something I really, really wanted now to do. And I really haven't looked back since then. And it's been quite a journey for me. Like I say, I feel very fortunate because I know a lot of people go through many years of their life being a little disconcerted about what they want to do with their lives, or at least in terms of an occupation. But I think I knew at fairly early age that's what I wanted to do, and I was able to, follow through, which is, I know doesn't always happen.
Well, isn't it great to wake up in the morning and be excited to go to work rather than dreading it?
No, absolutely so. Like I say, I mean, when work should be that. I mean, in other words, my work is not work to me. I mean, I look forward to it. I always have. The enjoyment factor hasn't really changed from when I was 16 years old. Other aspects of it, of course, have changed, but that same thrill I had at 16, I still experience, and I feel, I really feel blessed to have that be part of my life.
Aren't you a Chicago guy? Isn't that where you're from originally?
I am indeed. I grew up in Chicago. We own a restaurant, in fact, in Burbank, California, called Taste Chicago, which is a small little. It's kind of like a glorified hot dog stand, Italian beef pasta place, but
really? Well, where is that in Burbank? Where is it?
It's right at the corner of Verdugo and Hollywood Way. It's right near Warner Brothers, just right near Warner Brothers and NBC.
I used to live right there.
Airport.
I used to live in a building literally right there.
Yeah, well, you remember Hot Diggity Dog?
Yeah, wasn't it? It was a gas station.
Years. Well,
it was a gas station originally.
Well, now it's for the last. That's it. For the last 5 years, that location has been Taste Chicago, and it's. So if you get a chance, stop by, because it's really, outside of going to the city of Chicago, this is it in terms of the food.
Come on, Joe. Do I know the city? You gave me a location. I told you what it used to be. Now that's looking beyond.
Yeah. Well,
that's looking beyond.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
there you go.
You get the Chicago food without having to endure the 20 below weather. That's beautiful.
That was the whole point.
Yeah,
I would get a Jones for that kind of food and realize there was no flying back for it, so let's just do it here. So.
And plus, you can root for the Angels here. You don't have to be tortured with the Cubs.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm still tortured by the Cubs, even living here. But hopefully this century will be better than the last century for us. We'll see.
Well, hey, don't you think that part of your appeal is being that relatable guy, that Midwestern? You come from a Midwest, you're unpretentious, you're a regular guy, and I think people relate to you. Are you cognizant of that?
Well, I don't know. I do what I do. I can't really gauge, how people react to. I hope that people enjoy, the entertainment that my occupation provides as much as I enjoy doing it. That's all I could say. I just put it out there. But I do feel, coming from the Midwest. I've traveled all over the world, and again, my occupation has afforded me that opportunity. And I do feel that the Midwest. We're like the Canada of America, the Midwest, in essence. And having spent a lot of time in Canada, and if you have spent time in Canada, you would understand what I'm talking about. It's kind of like Midwesterners do have that kind of pretty much we'll take everything at its face value, and we're fairly, I don't know if naive is the word for it, but we tend to be little
naive.
If you tell me something, I'll believe you unless you give me otherwise. Maybe naive is maybe it's a good kind of naive, though. I like to think that we maybe don't have the same edge that people on either coast have, but it's okay. I've lived in every coast we have here, and I've enjoyed it all. But I feel good about being growing up in Chicago.
There's no Pelicanos there.
No, well, it's a funny thing you mentioned that, because I've known him since I've been about 15 years old.
You're kidding.
I knew him in Chicago.
Wow.
That's the absolute truth. He was somebody I happened to know, because I grew up for the most part in Cicero, Illinois, which is where Anthony was as well. So I knew Tony back only because I was in a rock and roll band, and he was kind of involved in the music business a little bit back then. So it's kind of funny. So I've actually known Tony on and off for, most of my life, but really hadn't seen him for the last, I'd run into him a couple times over the last 30 years, but it's ironic what's happening now.
Well, people can say what they want about the guy, but the fact is it's stunning that he has not rolled over on a single client. It's absolutely amazing.
No, he hasn't.
You got to admire that.
Yeah, and I do. Because knowing him even as I do, which, like I said, I haven't seen him much at all in the last 30 years, but I knew him well when I was like a teenager, and he was just a little bit older than I am. But he always was a stand-up guy like that. And that's Anthony. That was kind of been his. His mantra, and so I do respect him for that.
Michael Ovitz isn't looking too good in the whole thing, man. Look.
Well, I haven't even been following. My feeling is, what are you going to do? Life goes on.
Life goes on. Now, listen, I want you to know we had Amber Tamblyn on this show, and she spoke very highly of you, loved you, thinks you're the greatest guy in the world.
Well, I love her to death. I was so thrilled to, first of all, you asked me earlier, how I started in this business. And I told you that I'd auditioned for a play that I did not get cast in. The play that I auditioned for was West Side Story back in the mid-'60s when I was in high school. And the reason the only reason I tried out for the play, I had no interest in being an actor or being in theater and the Man in the Moon. I tried out for the play because that movie had such an impact on me. And I think I'd only maybe seen one play in my life prior to that I auditioned for the play.
Right.
And I didn't, like as I said, I didn't get cast, but I wanted to become an actor after that. Well, that movie, Amber's father, Russ Tamblyn, was Riff, of course.
That's
in the
right.
movie, West Side Story. So sort of ultimately the circle in a way completed itself when I wound up, working with Amber on that show, and then actually working with her father, because he did a few episodes of Joan of Arcadia with us. And it just thrilled me to no end, because he's one of my, my childhood idols, in terms of actors. So, it's Amber is just, she's a tremendous actress, and she's going to be a huge talent, as she already is. And I love her to death. That was a great experience for me working on that show.
Yeah, Joan of Arcadia. It was a really interesting show. And I'm with you on West Side Story. It had an impact on me, too. I grew up in L.A., and I love that movie, and when I got my first fight, I started dancing at the guy, and he beat the shit out of me. So once I recovered...
Well, that happens.
It happens. I took
That's
it
the difference
literal.
between movies and life, you know what I mean?
I learned a lesson.
Well, movies and life, you got to you learn a lesson. You got to understand that one thing is fantasy, the other is reality.
Yeah, right. As he was going upside my head, I was still singing. I just met a girl named Maria. So now
right.
you do voices on The Simpsons, and I'm a little bitter about that because one of my cousins is a producer writer on the show, and I can't get diddly squat. So anybody who works on it, I get a little bitter.
Yeah.
So how do you enjoy doing that experience?
I love it. I mean, it's my longest running role. I've been doing Fat Tony now for 17 years.
Wow.
Started out with one episode, and that's all I thought I would be doing. I mean, they asked me to come in and do this episode as this character, Fat Tony. It was right after Godfather 3 came out, so it was like a natural maybe let's cast that guy that played Joey Zaza on Godfather 3 to do this voice. Little did I know it was going to turn into what it became, and it's a character I've done continually since then, and I love it. I mean, I think the show is just a wonderful, well-written show. It's held up all these years. It's very popular all over the world. I was recently in Australia shooting the miniseries The Starter Wife last year, and the press I was doing down there, 99% of the time, they would really mainly want to talk about The Simpsons because the show is so big down there.
Really?
So it's a phenomenon, and I'm thrilled to be part of it.
Well, you do a great job. It's a great voice, and you were in the Rat Pack, and you played Dean Martin, which I love that performance that you gave in that movie, and I love Dean Martin. I think he's one of the really, it's hard to say he's underrated, but really when you look at the guy, how many people had hit songs, one of the all-time great comedy teams, leading man movie star, live act, solo act in Vegas, radio. I mean, it's unbelievable the career he had. And
all right, great television show and a hit television show.
The Gold Diggers.
No, you're absolutely. Yeah, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. Dean is like a god to me. I mean, and I was to tell you the truth, when I was cast in the role, I was thrilled and also dumbstruck and intimidated.
Really?
Because I thought, how do you portray Dean Martin? But
right.
I did a lot of research on it, and I appreciate the fact that you enjoyed it. I love doing it. If I had to pick, my top 5 roles in my life, that would be one of them. It was just a thrill to even portray that guy and to try to capture that world. I mean, that I thought it was a terrific script, and Ray Liotta and Don Cheadle and myself and the rest of the cast, we all had a great time making it, and it was just. I was just saying today. It's funny. I was just thinking about it today. I had Sinatra playing in the car radio, and I was thinking to myself, I'm a guy born out of time. I really, been kind of in my prime during the heyday of the the 30s and 40s and all that, and when all those guys were really starting out, and the Vegas in
right.
the 50s. What could be better than that?
Well, you're in L.A. There's a great restaurant you should go if you really like that as much as I do. There's a restaurant in Culver City, right in the heart, where they've refurbished everything, called San Gennaro's. And on Friday and Saturday nights, they got a guy, and all he does is sing Dean Martin and Sinatra. And they've got a dance floor, and it's great music, and it's everybody there basically is over 40, but it's great because you have a great meal and wine, and this guy's croning out.
Oh, great!
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
Now we got
I'll check it out. I was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just a couple of weeks ago, when the singer Bobby Caldwell is a good friend of mine, and he sings in that style, and he was playing at the Catalina Bar and Grill.
Oh, really?
And my wife and I and some friends went and saw him there, and he did a great show, and it was very reminiscent of just what you're talking about, of those, the great supper clubs of that era, and seeing somebody like Sinatra or Dean or Sammy.
Yeah.
Bobby. I think Bobby Caldwell is an heir apparent to that group.
Right. Now, Joe, we got a phone call for you from Silver Wakeboarder.
Okay.
Is his handle. Is he there?
Yes, I'm here.
Silver, you're on with Joe Mantegna.
Wow, this is such an honor to be talking to Joe.
Well, thank you.
You are in probably one of my favorite films of all time.
And which one was that?
House of Games.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was one of my favorite films of all time, too, I tell you. It was, I've been very fortunate to have the relationship I have with David Mamet. And that film, for both of us, was really quite something, because it was his first film as a director and my first really lead role like that, at least of that magnitude. And so to do that film with somebody who we had done theater together and had some success with that, it's a real important film to me in my life, and it really kind of has held up. That film's almost like a cult film now. I mean, I get asked about that film in Europe and all over the place. I mean, it's just one of those films that I think will kind of hold up for a while.
Oh, yeah. Were you ever offered the part of Ricky Roman in the film Glengarry Glen Ross?
You know what? I never was, because Al Pacino was connected to the project while I was even still doing the play. I was still doing the play of Glengarry Glen Ross. We were touring it, I think, at that point. The Broadway show had closed, and now I was on tour with it. But ironically, you mentioned House of Games and connected with Glengarry Glen Ross. David Mamet came into my dressing room while we were on the road doing Glengarry, and he said to me, he says, "I want to tell you something." He says, I just recently sold the rights to the film version of this play. Al Pacino's already connected to it. You're not going to play the part. He said, and David's very good that way. He tells you the truth right up front. There's no dilly-dallying around. He says, "But I want to tell you something." He says, "You're not going to play that part, but I'm not going to make these two movies without you." And he gave me the scripts that evening to House of Games and to the film I did for him afterwards, which was called Things Change with Don Amici. So he gave me both those scripts that evening that he told me I wasn't going to be doing the movie of Glengarry Glen Ross. So I have to say, I mean, a more honorable man doesn't live than David Mamet for doing that in a way, for me, and kind of in a way of telling me, you can't do this. We've had a lot of success with this play version of it, but that's okay. We're going to do this instead. And so I really can't complain. I have no regret.
Cool. I look forward to seeing your new film with Mamet, too. That's my co-catch the showing on Wednesday,
Red
the
Belt.
17th.
I think I just went to a screening of it a couple nights ago. It's called Red Belt, and I was very happy with it. I think you'll like it. It's in the genre of Mamet, really at his at his best. So I feel very good about this movie, and I think people will enjoy it.
All right.
So have you ever caught Ricky Jay cheating at poker?
Who could? That's the problem. It's hard to catch Ricky cheating at poker. Ricky doesn't have to cheat at poker. He's too good. I mean, it's like when you're that caliber, I think him cheating would be it's almost ridiculous. That would be too easy for him. But he's remarkable. And you'll see when you see Red Belt, there's another young man who I think is Japanese, who Ricky helped, I think, turn David onto, who's also in the film, who is another artist of the same caliber Ricky is. I mean, Ricky will be the first to admit it because I talked to him about it. And this young man does some wonderful things that are incorporated in the film.
Sweet. It was so nice talking to you. And to quote one of your lines, "You're a bad little pony, and I'm not going to bet on you."
Very good. Thank you very much.
All right.
Keep up the great work, Joe.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Silver.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Joe, how trippy is that for you when you're walking down the street or you're just minding your own business and you're in a urinal somewhere, you're buying something somewhere, and someone comes up and just quotes something you said? It's got to take you back a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, it does, but it's great. I mean, look, if you can't appreciate that, then you're in the wrong racket. I mean,
absolutely.
I have to say, 99.9% of the time, people when they have the, if they're going to come up and say something, they're usually going to say something positive, or because they liked something, or they're just happy to see you, or whatever. So who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't like that? So I mean, I think it always bothers me when I see celebrities who get all bent out of shape and start going, "Why me? Why is this going on?" I mean, obviously you can almost bring too much of it on yourself, or you can tolerate too much of it on yourself. But I think if you just kind of live your life and just kind of understand you're in a public venue, and just accept it, you can go. Life could be a lot easier, And
Yeah.
so my feeling is, guys like this guy that just called in. I mean, what a wonderful, for him to take the time to do that. I mean, it thrills me. I mean, it's an occupational hazard that I'm in a public media, in the sense that, I know that me, alongside all the other, many people in my business, are public figures, but that's just the way of the world. That's the way it goes, and it's fine, And then, like I say, I'll take phone calls like that any day of the week.
Yeah, I never understand it. I heard Bruce Willis once complaining, and it was like, Bruce, I remember when you were a bartender and hanging out at the Improv and just wanting to be one of the guys, and you don't understand a person coming up and telling you that they think you're funny or talented or you're handsome or
right.
what's the problem?
I know. So soon they forget.
Yeah.
Well, what's going to happen is, I think a lot of times these are going to be the same people that down the line are going to be walking down the street saying, "Hey, do you remember me?" And are going to be maybe a little plucked when nobody's turn. And that day certainly may very well come, and I anticipated myself, and that's fine. You go the course, and things will be what they'll be.
Yeah, but part of it, Joe, is people want to work with people they like. And I know people that have worked with you and talk about that you're a great guy and you're a regular guy and you're not moody and you say hello. And, that's one reason why people work a lot. They're consistent. They show up. They know their lines. They're in a good mood. They don't play head games. And a lot of these people, they play the games and they wind up not working. They can't figure it out.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think that is true. I mean, I have to say, I mean, I've always taken it very seriously, the position that I'll wind up taking on whatever project I'm in, and what's where you have to be most responsible is when you're number one on the call sheet, let's say,
right.
as I am now with Criminal Minds. In other words, in our business, well, as you know, there's a pecking order in terms of how they number you on the call sheet. So when you're number one on the call sheet, you're what they would consider the principal actor. But what comes with that is a responsibility, because how you behave, how you act, dictates to everybody from number 2, 3, 4 up to 100 on the call sheet.
Right.
The same thing with the producer, same thing with the director. And all. I mean, it's funny. I just had this conversation with. I'm a good friend of Lisa, who is the head of Extra. The TV show Extra.
Right.
And Lisa is she's a wonderful, wonderful woman, and she even made this statement, because I know that she runs a really. It's like a fun show to be on when you're over there with Matt McGrath and them, because everybody's having a good time. And Lisa made the comment. She says, "Well, the fish stinks down from the head."
Right.
And she's right. I mean, so if the head is not right, then the whole thing is going to go bad. And I just take that very seriously. So my feeling is, when I walk on a set, especially when I'm number one on the call sheet, my goal is to set a tone and an atmosphere of like, hey, look, we're all here. It's a hard enough business. Let's just all have a good time, and let's enjoy each other. Let's not make the job any more difficult than it needs to be, and let's just have a good time. And if you do that, then everybody else, follows suit. But if you act like a lunatic, then you're giving permission for everybody else to do the same.
Well, I think that's a great.
I'm not
going
to let that happen.
It's funny, because I just had a friend of mine who was in a film. And they're doing the movie, and all the actors are complaining, because actors love to complain. And he said to everyone, "Hey, let's go back 1 week ago when we were all dying to have the job, and we would have done anything for the job. Let's go back in time, and let's just not worry about where the restroom is, how far you got to walk to the restroom."
Oh yeah.
So
no, isn't it the truth?
Joe, we've got another call for you from NBA Kid. Can you take that?
Okay.
Sure. Go ahead. NBA Kid,
hey,
are you
guys.
there?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, man. Speak your mind. And remember, he's not Kreskin. So go ask your question.
Hey, Joe. I was going to say, Searching for Bobby Fischer is one of my all-time favorite films. You were great, man. That's a great film.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, again, if I had to pick 5 films that would be along there with Rat Pack. That would be another one, because it was just everything came together on that one. It was a wonderful writer-director with Steve Zalian, who the next film he wrote was Schindler's List. It was shot by Conrad Hall, who's since passed away, but is arguably one of the greatest cinematographers who ever lived. And then you had a tremendous cast from Ben Kingsley to Joan Allen to William H. Macy to everybody in between. Even in bit part, we had Tony Shalhoub doing a role in that movie where he didn't even have a line, where he was playing chess with my son in one little scene there. So that was a special film. I mean, it really was, and I've actually stayed close to the kid. Not so much the actor. I mean, I still have been in touch with, but the actual real boy, Josh Waitzkin, who's now grown up into a young man, and it was such a privilege to play that role and to be in that movie, because I just think that movie is a special film. I think that really came out really well.
And one more question. On Baby's Day Out, did you ever work with John Hughes or not? And if you did, what's it like to work with him? And is that what
John,
the script?
Yeah, well, John wrote the script. John, he didn't direct the film, but he was around. I mean, John was around, and because we shot the whole movie in Chicago, and that's where John is based. And for me, it was exciting because here was a guy who, like David Mamet, he's a Chicago writer. So and he has his own voice, just as Mamet has his own voice in his take on, especially derived from growing up in that city. Here's John Hughes, who's done this whole group of really wonderful films, from Ferris Bueller to Baby's Day Out to Home Alone and all the different films. So it was a great experience to just be part of that John Hughes world, for the time I did it, because it's a kind of a fantasy, almost childlike, fun, comic kind of world. So I enjoyed it. Like I say, John wasn't there every day, but he's hands-on. I mean, he oversaw the whole thing, and he did write it. So he was very involved.
All right, kid.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Joe, the thing about Searching for Bobby Fischer, to me, it's a really underrated movie. I think, when I look at movies, I think of like the Last Picture Show or Paper Moon. I put it in that category because I think all three of those films you can watch 100 years from now, and it'll have the same impact because it's about people and feelings and connection, and it's timeless.
Yeah, you're right, and the older I get, and the more I've done, the more I realize how rare that is. When you're
very
young,
rare.
Starting out, you think everything you do is going to be of that caliber.
Right.
So it's like I equate a lot of things to sports and to baseball because I'm a huge fan of that. And you think about it, it's like baseball. You think when you're young, you get up there, you're going to get a hit every time up, and then you realize at the end of your career, you realize how many guys have actually. The greatest baseball players of all time were the guys that batted 400.
Right.
So in other words, 4 out of 10 times, on the average, they got a hit.
Right.
So that means 6 out of 10. The majority of the times you've got a miss, and that's kind of what it's like in my business. It's like it's a rare thing to do something that just, as you said, will hold up for hopefully generations and for years to come. And as you get older, the more you realize that those things are like rare little jewels, and when you're lucky enough to be involved with them, it's really gratifying and thrilling, And so I'd like to think that I've been lucky enough to at least had grabbed a couple of those little jewels in my career, and hopefully there's 1 or 2 still remaining.
Well, that movie's got legs, and you look at that cast of Joan Allen and Ben Kingsley and Lawrence Fishburne, and the kid, I just thought it's one of the great performances I think a child actor's ever given for me. He's so believable and so lovable and so realistic in every aspect, but the real cornerstone in the movie is the believability of his relationship with you And for me, as a guy who has been an ice hockey coach for kids and juniors, and have to deal with parents who, a lot of them are so well-intentioned, and then it takes on a life of its own where, and then this character, it was the same thing, even though it was chess. It's the same thing where the father's well-intentioned, and now he's out of control, and finally, in the end, realizes he's got to pull himself back. And I just think that it's how do you make chess interesting, and yet you did, but your performance as the father and that performance with the kid together, that was so believable for me. I just absolutely love that movie.
Yeah. Well, thank you. The fact that it was, based on the book written by the father. So, it really, that was part of the reason, because the whole project was stemmed from the relationship of this dad with his son, and the fact that he had to write this book about it ultimately.
Right.
And so it was gratifying to kind of bring that book to life, and Steve Zalian did such a wonderful job writing that script, and we had Scott Rudin producing, who has this reputation for being like one of the craziest producers in Hollywood, but at the end of the day, he's one of the greatest producers in Hollywood for that same reason.
Right.
Because he gets so passionate about his projects, and he was very passionate about Bobby Fischer, and really gave us the time and everything we needed to make that movie, what it was. And so, it's, Sports Illustrated, I think, named it one of the 10 greatest sports movies of all time. Which
Did they really?
Yeah, they did. They came out with a list calling what they thought were the 10 greatest sports movies of all time. And to some people, they were surprised because they thought, wait a minute, sport, chess. But I think, I understand perfectly why it would fall in that category, and I was gratified to hear that they had made that choice.
And the great scene for me is when you're putting that Glovolium in that glove, and you're going to put the ball in and wrap it up, because I remember distinctly as a kid my dad doing with me. It's a great rite of passage that American fathers have with their kids, and kid that has no idea and why you're doing that, and the excitement of getting that glove, man. It was great.
Right.
Anyway,
absolutely.
Listen, now, Joe is up at the Lake Arrowhead Film Festival. He's got a film on Sunday, Elvis and Annabelle, that is playing. He's being honored for an award at a dinner that you can attend, and both Friday night and an awards on Sunday. So if you're in L.A., go on up to Lake Arrowhead for the weekend or for the day. It's beautiful up there. It's an incredible facility. It's a resort and spa. You'll meet Joe, see his movie. You're going to have a great time. Joe, I actually have a short film that's playing up there, so hopefully I'll be able to say hello.
Oh, great.
Well, don't say great until you've seen it.
Please do. If you see me up there, I'll be coming up. Our show's going to screen Saturday at 5 o'clock up there, and then I'm going to be there for that on Saturday night, and then Sunday, I guess Sunday morning or early afternoon, they'll have this.
Fantastic.
I guess a little brunch type of thing. But anyway, if you see me up there, please hunt me out.
I will. I'll be the guy with Pelicano. Don't get nervous.
Okay, that's very good. Okay.
Hey, listen.
Well, good luck with that.
Exactly. I'm smuggling him messages into prison. Listen, before you go, can you give us a station identification? Maybe do it as Fat Tony or something, that you're listening to Hollywood Babble-On at UE Radio.
All right. Let me.
You can riff anything you want. Riff anything.
I keep him here. What is this, Hollywood Babble-On?
Hollywood Babble-On on UE Radio.
On UV?
No, UE.
Which? UE Radio.
Yeah.
All right, wait a minute. Let me see if Tony, can you do something here for the... Give me the phone. Give me the phone. Wait a minute. You're listening to Hollywood Babble-On, and you I don't know what the hell UE Radio is, but listen to it or you're going to get whacked. All right, Tony, give me the phone. Oh, my God.
Thank you.
Out of control.